But then we closed it. Yeah. So what he was doing, sure, and so. Testing. And then he. Right? Do I? Okay. Okay, good. But there's nothing, right, but it doesn't even show it. No, it doesn't show it running. Oh, it shows over here. Well, it shows that it's running. It doesn't show it running. No. But oh, what the hell? Yes. Yes. And he doesn't want to send it down again when you pause it and then restart it. They fix it. Which reminds me. Yep. Yeah. Well, what you do is, so you double click on that one and you start. Okay. Now, you want to go over here? Yeah. Click right there. And it takes a while to get used to. Okay, so Right.
But this is
But I didn't make it to the one. It went. So the TV here just kind of moved a little bit. It did. Yes. Did it went okay? I think so. Well, a little. That's right, that's why you're going to sit, that's why you're staying.
I'll call this June 3rd meeting of the Platting Board to order. Roll call.
Taylor. Here. Clark.
Here.
Roll.
Here.
Stolpe.
Here.
McKay. Moses.
Here.
Plunkett.
Here.
Story.
Here.
Prager.
First order of business is approval of action summaries. Do we need to do these individually?
No, you can take a motion.
I'd like to have a motion to approve the action summaries.
Move to approve.
Benjamin moved and Kathleen Plunkett seconded. Any objection? Hearing none, motion passes. Approval of minutes for Wednesday, May 6, 2009. May I have a motion, please? Benjamin Roll moves. Jody Moses seconds. Any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Special order of business, disclosures. Are there any disclosures at this time? Good. Consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda. Is there anybody that would like to have that item removed? Not, I'll have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Benjamin Roll moves and Lyndall Story seconds. Is there any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. There is no old business to take up, so we will move into the public hearing. Could we have... Okay. During the public hearing, we're going to have the staff make its presentation, then will be a representative from the petitioner to make their representation, and then they will have 10 minutes. They can reserve any time left for rebuttal. Then a representative of groups will have 5 minutes. Individuals will have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. Could we have staff presentation on our first case, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a preliminary plat for Lake Otis and Tudor subdivision, lots 1 and 2. It's a subdivision of 3 parcels and 1 lot into 2 lots with vacation of easements. It is approximately 2.6 acres in size. The vacation requests include the following easements. They were all dedicated with Plat 2004-16. There's a 10-foot buffer landscape easement, a 15-foot development setback easement, a 12 by 38-foot fire hydrant easement, as well as a 6-foot public use easement that was recorded by document. The easements are all located along the south property boundary that's shown on sheet 2 of the preliminary plat and is included in the packet on page 9. That shows all of the easements that are the subject of this vacation request. This plat is basically, the purpose of it is basically for the proposed Tudor Road, Lake Otis intersection improvements. The change in lot boundary for proposed lot 2 is to allow the relocation and reinstallation of an existing sign for the commercial development that is located on proposed lot 2. And the sign will be relocated in a conforming location at the southwest corner of lot 2, which is existing lot 3, 33A. Basically, vacations will now be located in the public right-of-way. The existing fire hydrant will be relocated during the construction of the intersection. It will be located in the right-of-way. There was no objection to the request for vacation of the easements, and therefore the department does recommend approval of the easements as listed on page 5 of the packet, as stated earlier in the presentation, and also approval of the plat for 18 months with one amendment on page 3. There is on the second page of the packet and on the plat map that is displayed, there is shown a 15-foot access easement that is to extend from across lot 2, across lot 1 to the south boundary of BLM lot 31. This is to provide access to lots 31 and proposed lots 1 and 2. The amendment is it's currently shown as 15 feet. The amendment is to provide a 24-foot access easement along the east property boundary of proposed lot 1 and amending the easement identification to read a 24-foot access easement for the benefit of BLM lot 31 and lots 1 and 2. There's one other typographical error in the recommendation. Item number 4 states placing the following notes on the plat. The 3 following notes should be identified as A, B, and C rather than 5, 6, and 7. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Margaret. May we hear from the petitioner's representative, please?
Good evening. My name is Mary Ellen Tuttle with Dow HKM, and I'm here representing the municipality on this plat. I also have with me Tom Knotts, the municipal surveyor, who can answer additional questions on the history on the area. As Margaret mentioned, it's really a housekeeping measure. I would imagine many of you are familiar with the fact that the improvements to Tudor and Lake Otis are considered a very high priority for the municipality. The municipality over the last few years has acquired significant property on the northeast and southeast corners of that intersection to accommodate the improvements. This plat basically cleans up the northeast corner of the property by taking what were two smaller lots, combining them into one, and providing for the relocation of the sign from the commercial property that was formerly lot 33. During the negotiations with the property owners, the commercial property ended up losing some of their land to a public use easement for the road improvements, and so the agreement was to help relocate the sign in a way that would be compliant with code on their property. The vacations will be taken care of by additional facilities being constructed within the new public use easement that's being used for the road improvements. So the fire hydrant and bus stop will be reconstructed, but they will be within a public use easement that has already been recorded. I'd be happy to answer any other questions if anyone has any, and I'd like to reserve the remainder of the time.
All right, you have 8 minutes and 12 seconds.
I do have a question.
Okay.
I don't know if you're the appropriate person or if I should inquire of staff, but I didn't have an opportunity to ask before. There appears to be a disagreement about property owner access to both Tudor and Lake Otis. Just reading through a letter that we just saw tonight. Can you address that, or should we ask staff to address that?
This plat does provide access to BLM Lot 31 from Tudor Road through the 24 access that was mentioned by staff. It will allow access from Tudor Road to the two lots that are part of this subdivision, as well as BLM Lot 31, which is just to the north. I can't really address the access issue out to Lake Otis, as that's not part of this plat, and I'm not familiar with it.
Thank you.
Does staff have a response to Ms. Opie's question?
Through the chair, Ms. Stopey, as Ms. Tuttle stated, the 24-foot easement has been provided. It's widened from 15 feet. It does provide access to BLM Lot 31. The access to Lake Otis Parkway, there is a bus pullout. It did affect the access to BLM Lot 31, for which the property owner was compensated. There is also an access agreement between the owner of proposed Lot 2 and the writer of the letter, and so access will be provided that way. That is a private agreement. The municipality is not involved. And this plat cannot address access to BLM Lot 31 because it is not part of the plat. So the Platting Board has no options regarding providing access to Lake Otis Parkway in this action. And the municipality is providing access to that lot through the 24-foot access easement.
Thank you. Are there any more questions of the petitioner? Is there anybody else here to testify in this matter? Come forward, please. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Meredith Montgomery. I am a lawyer with the firm Boyd, Chandler, and Falconer. We represent Mr. Turker. Mr. Turker objects to this petition, and as you probably know, he is the owner of what is called BLM Lot 31. It lies directly north of Proposed Lot 1, adjacent to Proposed Lot 2, and I know you have received the letter that Mr. Turker provided, dated either June 1st or 2nd, outlining his concerns with the petition. Mr. Turker would like the letter and its attachments to be part of the record in this case, and he has asked me to highlight for you briefly his two primary concerns. However, the most important one the 24-foot easement access regarding Tudor Road, I believe has been addressed, but I'll speak more to that in just a moment. The staff report, my first point is that the staff report indicates that Lot 31 has access to Lake Otis via a private agreement with the owner of proposed Lot 2. Mr. Turker feels that this greatly oversimplifies the long factual history relating all the property owners relevant here, including the municipality. Suffice it to say, the private agreement that is referred to expressly provides that Mr. Turker and the Muni must enter into a separate agreement. And because a Turker MOA agreement has not yet materialized, Mr. Turker does have a legitimate concern, then, that his existing private agreement will become void, thereby eliminating Lot 31's access to Lake Otis altogether. The second point is what had been proposed as a 15-foot access easement from Tudor Road. We wanted to make clear that this ignored existing law. Ordinance number 2008-24 was signed by the Anchorage Assembly on February 26, 2008. It did provide 24 feet from Tudor Road to benefit 3 lots, including Lot 31. So Mr. Turker does feel that your approval of this petition tonight would be neither cost nor time effective because it will result in either an appeal or additional petitions concerning this plat. And he does oppose the action tonight. I'm here, and Mr. Turker is here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there questions of the board? First, before we do that, let me just make note that Mr. Krager did arrive at the meeting just prior to staff making their presentation.
Thank you. I apologize for my delay.
Mr. Krager, did you have something?
Question, what's the current access to the property?
The current access, I believe it's whatever is existing from Tudor Road. I assume that the status is 24 feet since that's the current law, although it doesn't reflect on the plat as proposed.
And so your client's concern is that this easement will vanish if the plat is approved?
That is his ultimate concern, yes.
And if that easement goes away, how will he access his property?
If which easement goes away?
The one that he believes he has a private easement with another individual on.
The private agreement easement, which is actually, I believe, to the north. That does not touch Lake Otis, does it? It goes out Laurel. Hold on a sec. If that goes away, he has no access to Lake Otis because that has currently been given as a public use easement to the city.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here to testify in this matter? Does the petitioner, would the petitioner like to do any rebuttal?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Tom Knox. I'm the municipal surveyor, and my office is in charge of developing this plat for the construction project. And I want to speak to the easement on Lot 31 off of Lake Otis. That is not part of this plat. That was all part of a negotiated acquisition for the construction project. And Mr. Turker does hold an easement offered by the owner of the lot immediately north of his, the south half of Lot 30. And Mr. Turker has decided that he is not going to exercise that easement. And the sole reason for that easement was to take Mr. Turker's access out of the middle of a bus turnout and move it north, which would give the corner, the people coming on Tudor Road traveling west and turning north on Lake Otis, the opportunity to turn and not stack up traffic trying to pull into Mr. Turker's property, which is immediately one lot to the north of our plat. And as far as the 24-foot access, that was also an agreement that the municipality originally agreed to, and we don't have any problem accepting that. So Mr. Turker, as far as his access is concerned, has been served. It's his choice whether he wants to utilize the easement that he's been provided, that he agreed to and negotiated with the other property owner who is the owner of the proposed Lot 2. So we as a municipality, we have developed our construction plans based on all those agreements, and we're ready to go forward with those construction plans.
Are there any questions of the petitioner?
Could you clarify for me? It sounded like from the last statement we heard that the current access was a private agreement that sounded like it was going to go away as soon as this new access came available. Is that the case, or is this new 24-foot access going to be the primary access for Lot 31, or is that not the case?
It's not my belief that the access off of Tudor Road will be the primary access. And as far as the access agreement between the two parties going away, that is purely a decision of Mr. Turker.
Yeah. Thanks.
Ms. Stolpe?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Knox, in Mr. Turker's letter to us, I'm just trying to understand this. I'm not placing a value anywhere. I'm just trying to understand. In his letter to us, it was dated June 1st of this year. He talks about being, wait a minute, let me find it here if you just give me a moment. He says he was earlier, have you seen this letter? Do you know?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So he said he was earlier included in the preliminary replat application that was originally scheduled for May 6, 2009. As the planning staff analysis notes, I withdrew from the preliminary plat application by letter dated April 16, 2009. Not reflected as the planning staff analysis, in the planning staff analysis, the reason I withdrew. He says the reason he withdrew is because the replat application as originally submitted was predicated on a multi-part agreement between the Muni Larson Trust and himself. Can you help us understand that part of it, please?
Yes, I can. The agreement that had evolved over the years as we were acquiring the rights for the Tudor Lake Otis properties or project from the properties. One of the properties is the proposed Lot 2, and the other property was Mr. Turker's property, Lot 31, as well as the two lots that are going to be combined into one lot on our plat here. And Mr. Turker had a development plan that he was proposing. And as the negotiations proceeded over about a year and a half, it was decided that a private agreement between Lot 2 owner, Mr. Larson, and Mr. Turker, Lot 31, would be developed by them in order to identify the exchanges of access and development of the two properties to benefit the two properties of this whole area. And the municipality, our part, through Heritage Land Bank, was going to offer for sale the remnant parcels, because the Lot 1 is a remnant parcel because quite a great portion of the two lots are being utilized for right-of-way. And the private agreement between Mr. Larson and Mr. Turker was that Larson would give up his rights to bid on acquiring Lot 1, and Mr. Turker would reimburse Mr. Larson a certain amount of money, and Mr. Turker would utilize that Lot 1, combine it with his lot, and go forward with his development. We submitted the preliminary plat application to planning, and in talking with Mr. Turker, it was decided that it would make sense to combine his Lot 31 with Lot 1 into one whole lot, so he wouldn't have to go back before the Platting Board with his development plan and accomplish that. And then we were also working with planning on the issues that would be applied, or the criteria, the conditions that would be applied to developing this plat. And one of the conditions was a 6-foot arterial landscape easement being applied. And we fought tooth and nail at project management and engineering with planning. But we realized that we weren't going to overcome that condition. And so we had told Mr. Turker that we can't have this arterial landscape easement not be applied to this property, which would also be applied to his Lot 31. And he was opposed to that, and he decided to withdraw from the plat. And at the same time, the agreement that he had written and offered to the municipality through Heritage Land Bank was not acceptable, and Heritage Land Bank had delivered it to the municipal attorney's office. The municipal attorney's office had reviewed it and reviewed it slowly. And so it didn't make a lot of sense for the plat where Mr. Turker was a part of it to be involved with the municipality in joint ownership of a parcel of property, which we still hadn't had a final agreement and sale of the property to Mr. Turker. So it made sense from his standpoint and from ours to back out of the plat. But even to this day, we haven't told Mr. Turker that we're no longer going to sell him the two lots. It's his choice. If he wants to buy the two lots, that agreement is still in place. Verbally, it's still in place, and it can still be done.
Topi?
Just to follow up, if I read the packet correctly before I got here tonight, the issue seems to be Mr. Turker's access to Lake Otis, because he will retain access to Tudor with his property, but he will no longer have access to Lake Otis. Is that the issue?
He will gain access to Tudor Road as part of a previous agreement, and we're not opposed to that. He still has access to his property on Lake Otis, off of Lake Otis. He never had access to his property off of Tudor. We're giving him this access.
So he had access from Lake Otis?
Correct.
Well, but he won't have that any longer?
Yes, he will.
He will. So have access from both places?
Yes, he will. But he has to choose to utilize the easement which was granted to him by Dr. Larson. In a fallback position, if all of that goes away, he still has the right for access off of Lake Otis, and it would probably be constructed through the bus turnout.
Through the bus turnout? Oh, the bus turnout.
The bus turnout, yes. which is not a good situation for his property as well as the municipality.
No.
But he would still have that right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any further questions of the petitioner? Seeing none, the matter rests with the board. The public hearing is closed. All right, are there any questions of staff? Then I suppose we'll entertain a positive motion on this matter. Mr. Roll?
Yeah, I was wondering if staff could
Okay.
review or restate what they had talked about, the amendments. I think there were some comments there about amending some of the notes. Maybe I misheard.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Roll, it's proposed condition number 3. There's only two changes in two places. It reads, providing a, and the changes 24-foot access easement, and it continues unchanged, and amending the easement identification to read, and here's the second change, 24-foot access easement for the benefit of BLM Lot 31 and Lots 1 and 2.
Thank you.
The other change, Mr. Roll, is item 4. Underneath that, there are 3 items that are labeled item 5, 6, and 7. Those really should be item A, B, and C under the 4th condition.
Are there any further questions? May I have a motion, please? Mr. Story.
Yes, in the matter of case S11730-1, I move for approval of the request for the vacation of the 10-foot buffer landscape easement and the 6-foot public use easement.
Both be together.
You should probably say it because they're actually separate. This one.
Okay. Okay, A has a couple different easements, so we'll just cover number 1 first, I believe.
Motion can cover all.
Okay, yeah.
It can cover all of them.
Yeah,
A has several 15-foot development setback easements. There are several listed under A.
All right, let me restate that. I move for approval of item 1 and item 2.
Okay. Thank you. I have a second, please. Kathleen Plunkett. Is there any discussion? Mr. Story, would you like to speak to your motion?
I believe those recommendations are appropriate and the concerns have been adequately addressed.
Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to this motion? Hearing none, is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay, may I have the motion on the plat, please, Mr. Story?
Yes, in the matter of case S11729-1, I move for the approval of item B, approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to items 1 through 4, with the amendments listed by the staff.
Okay, I think that's 11730.
Oh, sorry, 11730-1.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please? Actually, thank you, Ms. Moses. Would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yes, I believe the access to Lot 31 from Tudor Road has been addressed through the 24-foot easement. and I believe that Lot 31 is not part of this plat and should not be considered. I also believe the recommendations are appropriate, and the concerns, again, have been adequately addressed.
Is there any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none. Is there any opposition to this motion? Motion passes. All right, the board will now take up case S11734-1, Conroy Rushton Edition Number 1. Could we hear from staff, please?
This is a request to subdivide 2 lots into 1 lot with vacation of a 10-foot wide alley and variance from design standards for alleys in order to create a dead-end alley. Essentially, this is a very simple plat removing an interior lot line between 2 lots to combine 2 lots into 1. There's a vacation of a alleyway behind them, but it's already a dead-end alley. The fire station exists on one of the lots, and a house is on the other lot. The fire department acquired the property that has the house. They intend to demolish the house, remove this interior lot line, and to increase the size of the building, increase the size of the fire department building. In regards to the vacation, the petitioner is requesting to vacate a 10-foot wide alleyway abutting the north boundary of both lots. The alleyway was dedicated by Plat P-168A, and therefore the petitioner is entitled to all 10 feet of the vacated alleyway. Furthermore, the municipality owns the property on both sides of the alleyway. The traffic department, transportation planning, and the planning department have no objection to this vacation. You can look at a good map showing this, the location of the vacation on the aerial map on page 12 of the packet. I'm sorry, on page 10 of the packet, and then there's an aerial photo on page 12. In regards to the variance to create a dead-end alleyway, the granting of the variance would not be detrimental to the public welfare. The alleyway is already a dead end. Dead ends at Lot 35A. The requirement for this variance request is essentially a technicality. In regards to condition number 5 on page 7, this condition needs to be amended. The design team would like to consider planting trees or shrubs within this 10-foot wide alleyway. So I'd like to ask that you make 2 changes to this condition number 5. The first one is to dedicate and construct. So it would read simply dedicate a 10-foot wide walkway. And then I'd like 1 sentence added to this condition, and that sentence would read, resolve with right-of-way and the trails coordinator the construction of the walkway. So again, it's to delete and construct from the condition, and then to add a sentence saying resolve with right-of-way and the trails coordinator the construction of the alleyway. And these 2 changes make it so that they don't have to construct the the walkway the full 10 feet of width. They could construct 6 feet, say, and install landscaping along the other 4 feet. The department recommends approval of the vacation of the 10-foot wide alleyway on the north boundary of existing Lot 9A. The department recommends approval of the variance from AMC 2180-250 to create a dead-end alleyway. And finally, the department recommends approval of the plat for 18 months subject to conditions 1 through 9 on pages 7 and 8 with the changes to condition number 5. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? May we hear from the petitioner's representative, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Charleston Yu. I represent the architecture engineering firm of SEMF, and we are representing the client, Anchorage Fire Department. This evening, we have with us Mr. James White, who is the planning director for the fire department, and also project manager for Municipality of Anchorage, Mr. John Clark. We're at a pre-design stage at this point, and so we are requesting this plot. And
Excuse me, could you move the mic a little bit closer?
Sure.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. First, we would like to thank the planning staff's thorough analysis of our petition, and we will abide by their recommendation. And presently, we will include the requested landscape requirement in our site planning submittal, and we will abide by all the recommendations that were listed by the staff's analysis. So the purpose of this project is presently the Spinner Fire Station Anchorage Fire Department rescue is number 5, is second busiest fire department under jurisdiction of the municipality, and they are in need of additional space for adding to the current facility. So they have purchased a lot, adjoining lot, which is residential lot, and we're hoping to combine those two lots into one and provide additional facility for storage of the fire engines. And so by combining those two lots, we had we're seeking variance for alleyways and so forth. And so if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Are there any questions of the petitioner? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other persons who testify in this matter? Does the petitioner, you've got 7 minutes, do you have anything else to say? I assume not. Oh, no, it's not. Okay, are there any other people here that wish to testify in this matter? Okay, does the petitioner have anything else that you need to say? Okay, the matter rests with the board. Does the board have any questions of staff? Not, I'll entertain a positive motion. Ms. Stolpe?
Mr. Chair, I move for the approval of case number S-11734-1. I move for the approval of the vacation of a 10-foot wide alley on the north boundary of existing lot 9A.
And I have a second, Ms. Taylor. Ms. Stolpe, would you like to speak to your motion?
Well, it seems like a logical change for us to be making, and there's no objection from the community. I move for the approval.
Is there any further discussion? Are there any opposed to this motion? Motion carries. Ms. Stolpe?
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval in the case S-11734-1, approving the variance from 21.80.250 parens design standards dash alleys end parens to create a dead end alleyway.
Ms. Taylor seconds. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Just the same as I said before, there appears to be a logical thing to do and no objection from the community.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Stolpe?
Mr. Chairman, I move in the case S-11734-1, I move for the approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 9, with the amendment number 5 reading, dedicate a 10-foot wide walkway along the west lot boundary per AMC 21.80.030. The walkway may be constructed under a right-of-way agreement, adding the sentence, resolve with right-of-way and trails coordinator construction of a walkway.
Ms. Taylor seconds the motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
The same as I've said before, this seems like a logical thing to do, and there's no objection from the community.
Any further discussion? Are there any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We will now take up case S11727-2, Keno Hills Subdivision, edition number 9. Could we hear from staff, please?
This is a resubmittal of a preliminary plat with variances. The plat was approved on April 1st, 2009. The variance from design standards for lot dimensions for the length of a flag lot was approved. The variance requests for dedication of streets and lot frontage and access were both denied. The preliminary plat resubmittal has been revised to show the existing private roadway easement and a proposed turnaround at the end of the private roadway easement. The petitioner has also submitted a draft maintenance agreement, which you can see on page 24 of the packet. The board should treat this case as a new case. The petitioner requests variance from design standards for lot dimensions, which requires the length of a flagpole, of the flagpole portion of a flag lot to be no longer than 200 feet in urban and suburban areas. I'm sorry, I think that's meant to be in suburban areas. I'm sorry, in rural areas. Thank you. The length of the proposed flagpole is approximately 368 feet. On April 1st, 2009, the Platting Board approved this variance. The Platting Board must reapprove this variance as if this is a new case. The petitioner requests variance from AMC 2180-010 and 2180-330. That's variance from dedication of streets and design standards for lot frontage and access, which require the subdivider to dedicate right-of-way to the public and that all of the lots shall have frontage to a publicly dedicated street. There are special circumstances affecting this property which would make the dedication of right-of-way impractical, unreasonable, and undesirable. The owner of the petition site and the owners of the properties abutting the existing driveway easement will be required to execute a driveway maintenance agreement. So maintenance will be taken care of privately. They've drawn up the agreement. The owner of the petition site will be required to dedicate a cul-de-sac bulb easement and will construct the entire length of the driveway easement to municipal standards. So the private roadway will be constructed to municipal standards. Maintenance will be taken care of. All the properties will have access. Therefore, the department recommends approval of the granting of all three variances. The department recommends approval of variance from AMC 2180-010, dedication of streets and design standards for lot frontage and access. The department also recommends approval of the variance from design standards lot dimensions for the length of a flag lot of approximately 368 feet. We have two last-minute changes that we would like to suggest to the conditions of approval. On condition 7, we would like to add the words resolve the need to in front of that condition. So it would read resolve the need to provide an 80-foot wide stream protection easement and so on. The reason for adding resolve the need is to allow the petitioner to speak with the members of the municipality that are involved in stream dedications to ensure that this is in code, that it's in the wetland anchorage, the Anchorage Wetlands Management Plan. There was some question about whether or not this was governed in that. So to add that language would be useful. And then on 13D, the plat note, the petitioner requested that we add track A1A is the purpose of this. So it would read, prior to any construction activity and submission of any plans to the municipality for permit approval, and then you would add tract A1A, comma, and then it would continue a surveyor or engineer as appropriate shall verify. That's because the stream only exists on this one tract, and so the other two lots that are being created do not need to be subject to this plat note, hence adding the language tract A1A right before that first comma. The department recommends approval of the plat for 18 months subject to conditions 1 through 13 on pages 9 and 10 with the added language to condition 7 and the added language to plat note 13D. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Nope. We will hear from the petitioner now, please.
Good evening. I'm Jane Byrne, executor of the Ruth Moan Estate and petitioner in this case. We were here before you in April with what I found out during the hearing was an incomplete plan, apparently based on miscommunications beyond my control. After the hearing, we met with the planning department and others to put together a better application. And that was our intent from the beginning, and I apologize for any inconvenience of the loss of your time. But I hope you remember some of the facts from our previous hearing. There are some misunderstandings in some department comments. I'd like to focus on testimony on pages 8 through 11. First, I'd just like to point out that this body previously granted the variance for the flag lot, and we have met all standards for the 2 additional variances. I would also ask that you note the department's acknowledgement of the hardship of road construction that would cost the estate. That we had agreed that I would construct an emergency vehicle turnaround, and that the neighbors in the community council and the South Plainview Rural Road Service area all want this access to remain as it is, a driveway. Under the department recommendations, I agree with and support all conditions, with the exception of a couple corrections that need to be made prior to approval. Within requirement number 9, there seems to be a typo, as you can see in the department's review. Immediately prior to the recommendations, while the cul-de-sac will be built to the standards in Table C, the driveway easement will remain as it is. It was our understanding with the meeting with Jerry Weaver that the only improvements that would be required would be the construction of the fire turnaround cul-de-sac. The estate has limited funds and should not be required to upgrade the existing driveway, which has been used for the last 12 years. We plan to build a fire truck turnaround as required. The fire department has test-driven the existing driveway annually and has had no problems with it. On 13D, it needs to be a little bit more specific, please. I would suggest adding the following similar language in 13E or E. Prior to any construction activity within 100 feet of the creek and submission of any plans to the municipality for permit approval. Otherwise, if I wanted to build a shed on the other side of the property, I'd have to get a survey, even if I wanted to build a shed on the other part of the 15 acres, really far away from the creek, I'd still have to get a survey every time. Thank you for your time and understanding in this most difficult time, and I thank everyone for their assistance in moving on forward in my life. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and would like to reserve the remainder of the time for my rebuttal.
All right, you have 7 minutes and 16 seconds. Are there questions of the petitioner?
Yes,
from the board?
please.
Ms. Stolpe?
Could you just clarify for me again, as I read this number 13E, which I think is what you were referring to, authorization must be obtained from the U.S. Corps of Engineers before proceeding with any clearing or construction activity in the surveyed stream. And I understand that there's a 25-foot setback on either side of a stream, and I'm not clear what your objection is.
Well, it wasn't E, it was D, and how I read it was on number D. Prior to any construction activity and submission of any plans to the municipality for permit approval, a surveyor or engineer shall verify the location of the creek and verify the distance of the construction activity to the creek. The plan shall state these activities were performed by a surveyor or engineer. My point was, on the 15 acres, if I want to build a structure very far across on the 15 acres, according to this, I would still have to get a survey, or am I misunderstanding that? Because I absolutely agree with the setbacks of the creek.
Maybe that would be a question for staff.
13D.
Would you repeat the question?
Well, how I read the paragraph D is that any time I want to build anything on the 15 acres, even if it was across the end of the 15 acres away from the creek, I would still have to get a survey showing how far away from the creek it is. Am I misinterpreting?
No, that's correct. I think that this was drafted with the idea that, you know, stream can change location and that sort of thing. The staff has no objection to adding the words resolve the need for condition 13D.
Okay.
So staff would suggest adding resolve the need for condition 13D, and we could take another look at that and see if there's an appropriate solution.
Okay. Mr. Krager?
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Ms. Moe. Hi. Welcome back. If I was listening carefully, I think you said that you object to condition 9, which requires the private road, including the cul-de-sac, to be...
On number 9, it says the words are construct the private road, including the cul-de-sac. And what I thought I agreed with after the planning thing last time was to construct the cul-de-sac to the municipal standards under Table 6, but not the existing driveway.
Okay, so we still have perhaps a disagreement because the municipality's recommendation to us is that it's okay to vacate this, or it's okay to vary, not vacate, it's okay to have a variance in municipal standards for this long driveway.
Yes.
But their opinion appeared to be conditioned upon the understanding that the driveway was going to be constructed to these 21.85 Table C municipal standards.
That's right.
So you don't think it ought to be constructed to those standards.
Right.
Their apparent support of the variance is at this point conditioned upon it being constructed to those standards.
Correct.
Okay, so I think I understand a bit of the issue. So do you want to flesh that out for us?
Sure. What I'm wanting and hoping for is as I stated earlier, the driveway, the existing driveway, which is going to, at the very, very most, support 4 people, and that's at the very top, and there's only 1 person now, is an existing driveway that has been in use for 12 years, and we've had fire trucks come up, drive all the way up it, and use it, and made it up and turned around this gentleman's driveway. But now, we're going to make the municipal fire truck turnaround just like you asked us to. No problem with that. But I'd like to please keep the road the way it is due to the financial situation of trying to bring this road up to the standards that they're requesting here.
Thank you. Through the chair, a follow-up question?
Certainly.
Have you discussed this difference of opinion that you have with the planning department folks
Jerry
over
Weaver,
there?
and I'm sorry, we had a meeting with Jerry Weaver and my
Yeah.
surveyor, and I told him exactly the same thing, and he said, sounds good to me, but as I see, he's not here tonight to say that.
Right.
But he said, yeah, that sounds great. So I was very surprised when I got the comments last night, and in here it keeps saying driveway easement will be improved to municipal standards, and I thought, whoa, because he said it sounded fine to him.
Have you, may I follow up, Mr. Chair? Have you, with Mr. Lang or anybody else, got an estimate of a couple things that I'd be interested in hearing at least?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are the differences going to be, and we went down this road before, but this driveway before, what are the differences going to be between the way it's currently constructed and the municipal standards, and what would the cost be to bring it up to cover that distance?
Does it? Okay, I going to throw out the number that I heard, and it was $120,000. $120,000. And, well, I'm telling you, the estate does not have that money. And the whole idea is I'm just trying to break this up with the heirs, my brother and sister. That's all I'm trying to do is get this in final, give it to my heirs, and walk away from this. I'm going to stay on my 15 acres and be good. I don't have $120,000 to build a road to bring it up to Table 6. On my cul-de-sac, I can get enough, scrape enough money together to do a municipal cul-de-sac, which I understand the engineer has to come up and he has to sign off on it and say that it's good. I have confidence that I can do that, but I cannot build an entire road. And that's where I'm stuck.
Ms. Moses?
Through the chair, you may have already answered it, but just to clarify, through Mr. Krieger's question, but just to clarify, so the only, as far as a qualifying factor, for lack of a better term, in terms of Title 21 and the requirements, it's just the financial inability to bring this driveway up to standard that you feel negates?
Yes, absolutely. To answer your question, yes. That's the honest to God first part. The second part is we'd like to keep it just a small driveway like it is. We're trying to keep the imprint as small as possible. As you know, we're doing 5 acres and 15 to leave the lowest imprint possible as like the hillside district and everyone wants us to keep. And to bring a huge road in and make it that big it's a dead-end road, and when it goes to 4 people, it's not a connector road, it's a driveway that will go to the most 4 people, and at this point, 1 person. And, but truly, to be honest, it is the financial, I can't handle it. But second of all, the neighbors, as you can see in the comments, don't want a bigger road in there to attract elements.
Thank you very much.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Staff's discussed this condition number 9, and we have no objection to adding the words "resolve the need" before it. Resolve the need to construct. I think that we'll be able to resolve this, after the hearing, in discussions with project management, engineering, and traffic. The traffic department and the project management engineering department have stated that this private roadway, private driveway must be, and the cul-de-sac must be constructed to the minimum, the minimum municipal standards, 24-foot gravel road, and we believe that the driveway, for the most part, may be in that, with the exception of the cul-de-sac, may already be in that state. We're sympathetic to the petitioner's argument, but it simply must be constructed to municipal minimum municipal standards. Therefore, the resolve the need. I think. We just don't believe that this is going to enlarge the road dramatically. Other than the cul-de-sac, but that needs to be worked out. But without a doubt, we can't make an exception to that this condition must be on there. So resolve the need, I think, will allow us to work this out afterwards.
Ms. Stolpe?
The basic issue is providing access for fire department equipment to get to the end of that road. understanding the financial situation, I don't know how, can we just go ahead and approve this, assuming that it's all going to get resolved? If we change, I realize that I'm digressing here from Ms. Moen, but if we change it, 13D to say resolve the need, does that assume that it's going to get resolved?
Yes.
So that it is appropriate for it addresses municipal code?
Yes.
All right.
Are there any other questions of the petitioner? Thank you very much. You still have 7 minutes and 16 seconds.
Right now?
Well, you're going to see if anybody else wants to speak.
Do you want to see me? You want me to say? Okay, here's my rebuttal.
Well,
No?
not yet.
Okay. I'll save the good stuff for last.
Yeah, we'll see if somebody else wants to speak first. Yes, sir?
Good evening. My name is Chris Hanley, and I'm asking that you support the petitioner's request for a variation of the sections of the code that have been mentioned, and also to oppose the portion of the item number 9 that asks for the upgrade to municipal standards for the driveway. I'm the owner of Tract B, the property to the south and east end of the main property that the application is subject of this evening. I'm the primary user of the driveway easement that we're talking about. I'm the person that constructed the road and the person that maintains it. I understand the purpose of the plat is to resolve the outstanding issues of the Millen estate, transferring the property to the heirs. I don't believe there's any interest or intent of any of the adjacent people to upgrade the road or provide improvements just to let the estate become resolved. I think we've tried to be sympathetic to what the code requires, to work within the requirements of the code, but the construction of the municipal standards is a significant cost and is a significant hardship, I believe, to the estate, would not have any significant benefit to the community or to the city. To retain the rural residential nature of the neighborhood, as 2020 asks, as the Hillside District Plan will support, I think is an important consideration. I think that the cost of $120,000 is an estimate. I know that there are some wet locations in that property. Disturbance creates drainage problems. To go down the depth to provide the additional fill that I did not provide when I was providing a strip driveway could be quite costly. The fire department has been to my property on a number of occasions to make sure that they can get up the road. I want them to certainly be able to get up the road. Important to all of us that are going to have, to me, I'm the only one up there, quite honestly. I'd ask that you approve the petitioner's request that they have asked for it.
Thank you. Mr. McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In response to the last speaker, I just wanted to say that condition number 9 must remain there. There is no lesser standard than the rural road standard. All the lots that are the 2 new lots that are being created and the 2 lots to the south all gain access from this driveway. If it's not passable by fire, then we've created a substandard road that endangers the public safety. It's simply adding the words "resolve the need" will allow the petitioner to work with project management and engineering in terms of this driveway. There's no intention to encumber the owner, but there just simply is nothing less than the rural road standard. Thank you.
Are there any other questions of this speaker?
I have a question for Mr. McLaughlin, if I may,
Sure.
and perhaps for the speaker. So your suggestion, the staff suggestion is that if we add this resolve the need, that that's somehow going to address the concerns that have been raised about having to spend $120,000 to bring the road up to these minimum standards. And it appears as though Ms. Moen didn't have a response to that, but Mr. Hamley appears to think that that's not enough and that it should be taken out altogether. Can you flesh out for us, Mr. McLaughlin, how adding this, I know it's resolve the need means that it gets decided by somebody else at an earlier, different time, but you follow my question? Can you?
Through the chair, Mr. Krieger, thank you for the question. Planning and all the other, traffic department, project management, engineering have made clear that this private roadway must be constructed at the minimum municipal standards, and that's what the condition says. The petitioner has requested for that condition to be removed because of the cost. She's also stated that she had a private discussion with someone within the municipality. Adding resolve the need allows her to meet with that person and to find if that conversation occurred or if there's something that planning staff's not aware of. But clearly, they're going to have to. The petitioner is going to have to figure out if the existing driveway meets minimum municipal standard, and to improve the portion at the very least where the cul-de-sac will be located.
Any other questions of the speaker? Okay, thank you very much. Ma'am, you can do your rebuttal now. You've got 7 minutes and 16 seconds.
Okay. Thank you very much for your help. If I can reiterate a few things, I want you just to tell, if you can look at the plat map, please do if you have it in front of you. Take out the word municipal standard road stuff and look at a driveway. This is a driveway. And if you can think about your own home and think of your driveway, this is what it is. At the very tops, it can support 4 homes. And like I said, the gentleman behind me is living there now, and I don't know what's going to be in the future, but if the 4 people could be on this driveway, let's use that word. It sounds like a happier word, driveway. But anyway, and can I reiterate, please, that the fire trucks have gone up there on several occasions and turned around in this gentleman's yard. That's the bare necessity. I mean, they have no problem with that. But we're going to build a municipal turnaround to Table C, the way you guys want it. I'm only asking you guys, can we leave it like the existing driveway that fire trucks have loaded up on for the last 12 years and had no complaints and life is good? Can we please leave that alone? I will build you the fire truck turnaround. It'll be beautiful. You'll love it. But if we could just leave the driveway is as it is. And again, it is the money. I don't have that money. I don't even know what I would do. But secondly, the whole idea is not to build big roads and tear things up. We're only having 4 people. If this road was connecting to some other place, I could really see your point. But it's not a connector road. It's a dead-end driveway. And we're trying to save money, and especially with everything going on, well, let's go out and go to the economy card here. I mean, money's tight with everybody. Can we just leave it alone the way it is? And it will be safe for fire trucks, and I would like to talk to each individual on this too and reiterate the fact that fire trucks have been here, they have turned around, and it is a safe thing. I would never want to put anybody in danger. That's not my intention. My intention is to get this subdivided, to move on, and not to tear up more than we have to. And as Chris mentioned earlier, we don't want to try to dig up more stuff, and good Lord, I don't know what kind of money we're looking at for that. But if you take the word driveway and look at that, and the most beautiful driveway in the world, and then go with that. And I know it doesn't sound professional, but I'm not a professional. I'm just telling you the truth. So, does anyone have any other questions on this?
Does anybody have questions? Francis?
Through the Mr. Chair and members of the board, the department opposes the request by the petitioner to change the wording of this condition. On April 1st, the Platting Board denied the variances from dedicating right-of-way. They've resubmitted with this driveway agreement. The Planning Department and municipal agencies are supporting the variance this time around with this additional information. But it just simply is not an option from the view of the municipality to not have that cul-de-sac constructed. If that cul-de-sac is not constructed, then there would be no access to those new lots that they are now today requesting to create. Thank you.
Oh, excuse me. I want to do in the cul-de-sac. I want to do it in the cul-de-sac. Oh, okay.
Mr. Krieger.
Yep, Ms. Moen, you stole my thunder. I was gonna say it's not, the cul-de-sac's not the issue. The question is the driveway. And does staff have an opinion at this point about what additional? I mean, we don't know whether the current condition of the driveway meets the municipal standards. Are you of the mind that it doesn't, and that there's going to have to be some physical improvements made?
Through the chair, Mr. Krieger, that's why we're adding resolve the need to just get past this. The driveway is there. Project management, engineering, and traffic have surveyed, or they haven't surveyed it, but they've driven it. They don't believe that there will be cumbersome improvements that will be necessary, but we just don't approve, these without a municipal standard.
So, Mr. Chair, a follow-up question. So what happens if we add this language that says resolve the need, and then Ms. Moen meets with Mr. Weaver or with you or somebody, and you can't come to terms about how much needs to be accomplished? What's the procedure that the petitioner could follow to come back to this board or somebody else to say, gee, they were just too tough, and they imposed some standards on me that I didn't think we needed? Is there a procedure that they could follow to get relief from failed negotiations to resolve the need?
Through the chair, Mr. Krieger, there is the possibility for an appeal, but there are time limits on it. I don't know if negotiations could be undertaken and resolved within the time limit of an appeal, which is an additional cost. I think the intention of the reviewing agencies was basically to ensure there's a sufficient road base to support the weight of a fire truck and fire rescue equipment. I understand the petitioner saying that fire trucks have been up the driveway, but we don't, as you pointed out, we don't know the standard to which the road has been constructed or the driveway has been constructed. Typically, a driveway serves one dwelling unit. We are creating 3 lots with potential of additional users. And my understanding was the intent was not to place an onerous burden financially on the applicant, being well aware after several meetings of the limitations, but it was basically to try to ensure that it's safe and there's no liability, and that it will indeed serve 4 lots, and there's potential for further subdivision in some of this property as well. We have to think of the future. And so we thought that maybe using the word resolve the need for would allow negotiations and a determination as to exactly how much improvements need to be made, because right now I have no idea if 120,000 is an accurate estimate. I don't know what the extent of any improvements will be needed.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Moen.
Do I have some time left?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Maybe I could ask, can I ask a question? or say something?
I would suppose.
Okay, when the staff brought up the idea of further subdivision, isn't it true that if someone wanted to further subdivide, that they'd have to go through this whole process again and make sure that the road was standard for them, up to par for them? I mean, every time someone comes in front of you and says, I want to divide something in half, don't they have to say, hey, is this road good enough? And you go, yeah, I mean, isn't that what would happen? So why would I have to, I mean, I understand the point that maybe someday someone will subdivide, but is that all on this right now?
Well, but part of the thought process here is, does this road meet the 4 lots?
Yeah.
And that's not an interpretation this board can take on, certainly, and it's not something that we would necessarily want to take, or at least I wouldn't necessarily want to take your word on it, though I'm sure that you have all the good intentions in the world.
Sure.
So,
what's the liability aspect?
well, hopefully not to me personally, but
is the concern from staff is a liability?
Well, there's concern about the future. But Mr. McLaughlin.
Mr. Chair, further subdivisions are possible, but and roads will be looked at again, but they may not. The new subdivider may not have control over this property since it's a driveway easement across the Moen property.
Wouldn't that be a variance?
Well, some way or other, they'd have to get access to this.
Yeah.
So I think that's.
Well, you can't sell land you can't have access to.
Anyway, are there further questions of the petitioner?
And just one last note, I do have I can look up the date and time that I met with Jerry Weaver, and my surveyor was with me, so we could go back and get notes if you need it to.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are there any further questions of staff? Is there, well, no, we've already done that. So the matter rests with the board. Could I have a motion, please? Ms. Stolpe.
Motion. Mr. Chair, in the case S-11727-2, Keno Hills Edition Number 9, I move for the approval of the variance from AMC 21.80.010, parens dedication / streets and parens, and 21.80.330, parens design standards - lot frontage and access in parens.
And that's seconded by Ms. Plunkett. Ms. Stolpe, would you speak to your motion?
I'm going to support this motion. It seems, this part of it anyway, pretty straightforward.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, are there any opposed to the motion? Seeing none, the motion carries. Ms. Stolpe.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, in the case of S-11727-2, I move for the approval of the variance from 21.80.300.g, parens design standards - lot dimensions, and parens for the length of a flag lot of approximately 368 feet.
Seconded by Ms. Plunkett. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I'm going to support the motion for the same reason as previously stated.
Thank you. Or is there any further discussion on the motion? Are there any opposed to the motion? Seeing none, motion carries. Ms. Stolpe.
Mr. Chairman, in the case of S-11727-2, Keno Hills Edition Number 9, I move for the approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to number 1 through 13 with these amendments as amended from the department recommendations. Regarding number 7, resolve the need to provide an 85-foot wide stream protection easement on both sides of the drainage way. Drainage way is in quotes on track A-1A per AMC 21.85.050, 21.80.040, and page 45 of the Anchorage Wetlands Management Plan, and the amendment on 13 Number 13D, resolve the need for the conditions on number D prior to any construction activity and submission of any plans to the municipality for permit approval. On track A-1A, a surveyor or engineer as appropriate shall verify the location of the creek and verify the distance of the construction activity to the creek. Plan shall state that these activities were performed by the surveyor or engineer. I did number 9. I think I did number 9. Oh, number 7. Ms. Plunkett tells me I missed number 9. And is that the resolve the need as well?
Yes.
And an amendment from the department recommendations for number 9, construct a private road including the cul-de-sac to municipal standards in accordance with AMC 21.85, Table C.
Could I have a second, please? Ms. Plunkett, thank you. Ms. Stolpe, would you speak to the motion?
Yes. It's been an interesting discussion, and the petitioner makes some good points. However, I'm going to support the motion to resolve this issue of the roadbed as it pertains to as it concerns municipal code, because I think that we have the, I guess, responsibility to support the municipal code, particularly in this instance, related to fire safety.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this motion?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Krieger?
I'm also going to support the motion. I recognize the petitioner believes the road currently is adequate, and I think it's important to decide if it does meet municipal standards. And I think it would be good evidence if you can show that there have been fire trucks going up and down there. That may be the functional equivalent of meeting that required standard. It may not be. We don't know. But I think that it's appropriate that you do continue to talk with the municipality and see if you can't figure out how that standard can be met. That's why I'm going to support the motion. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on this motion? Jody or Ms. Moses?
Through the chair, I also intend to support this motion, or support this, and I guess I'd like to clarify on record that, you know, the Platting Board, we make decisions in accordance with code, and I did ask the petitioner if she could identify where this waiver, if you will, to bringing that road up to standard would be covered here, you know, slope or something that would make it not doable. And unfortunately, financial difficulty, you know, strain isn't covered. And I think looking toward the future, we have to be protective of situations like this now. And to me, the verbiage driveway is being misused. If you do refer to the land use and planning, typically as staff, I believe, pointed out, driveways don't service minimum of 4 people, and that I think that's the difficulty right now. And if I may go on record, I noticed that the petitioner as well as the public interchangeably use the words as well, because they seemingly may be accustomed to calling it a road. And in comment to Mr. Krieger, if the road or driveway already currently meets or is very close to standard municipal requirements, then the cost will be very little to nothing to meet this requirement. So that could be a win-win.
Thank you. Are there any other discussions? All right. Seeing none. Are there any opposed to this motion? Seeing none, motion passes. Okay. The board will now take up case S11748-1, South Edition. Could we hear from staff, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a variance request only. The property is located between 15th Terrace and 16th Avenue. On page 8 and 9 of the packet is the preliminary plat and an enlarged detail from the preliminary plat that has already been approved under the abbreviated plat process. The approval did, though, have a condition to obtaining a variance from the minimum 100-foot lot depth requirement. On page 10 of the packet, the existing lot 18 and 17, you can see are long, narrow lots. They're 180 feet deep, and they're 50 feet wide. And the configuration that is proposed is an east-west rather than a north-south configuration. The variance would allow the plat to be recorded. The plat does resolve a major nonconformity in that the existing structure, it crosses the lot boundary and it is located on both the existing lot 18 and 17. By creating an east-west configuration, the house will now be located on one lot. It will not cross lot boundaries. The lot depth is very minor. Granting of the variance, if it's granted, would remove a major nonconformity. There are similar subdivisions that were approved and granted in the past before there were subdivision regulations, albeit, but there are, on page 10, you can see that there are at least three types of development like this. And it is very minimal in nature, and it will allow the house to be located on its own lot and create another lot that will could be usable as well. Therefore, the department does recommend approval of the variance from the minimum 100-foot lot depth for both lots proposed 17A and 18A in South Addition. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Margaret. Are there any questions of staff? Ms. Stolpe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the staff, I was trying to find it while you were speaking, and somewhere, I think it was on this case, there was a statement somewhere in this packet about no access to E Street from this property, and I can't find it. I may be mistaken, and it doesn't address it in the department recommendation.
Through the chair, Ms. Stolpe, prohibition on access to E Street is part of the preliminary plat requirements. It was addressed in the preliminary plat.
So that doesn't have to be included in the department recommendations?
Through the chair, Ms. Stolpe, no. Typically, those types of conditions are handled with the preliminary plat. This is a variance only.
Oh, I see.
It wasn't requested at the same time. Oftentimes, they're requested at the same time. But on page 26 of the packet, the summary of action for this case on item 4D, vehicular access to E Street is prohibited from any lot in this subdivision.
Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Are there any further questions of staff? Then we'll hear from the petitioner, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Charlie Forbes. I'm representing the petitioner, and this is pretty straightforward, and we appreciate staff's analysis. We did meet with the community council, and they had no objection to it unanimously. And also they agreed with the configuration of the lot, because if you had a chance to go out and look at it, you can see that there's a natural division of the lot due to the slope. And it just makes sense. If there's, I'd like to reserve the rest of my time for rebuttal. If there's any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the petitioner? Nope. Is there anybody else here to testify in this matter? Doesn't appear to be. In that case, do you have anything else you want to say? Then the matter rests with the board. I entertain a positive motion. Mr. Roll.
In case S11748-1, I move to approve the request to the variance from AMC 21.80.300.B.
Could I have a second, please? Ms. Taylor, thank you. Would you speak to your motion, Mr. Roll?
It appears to meet the requirements of the variation request and seems pretty straightforward to me.
Is there any other discussion? Are there any opposed to the motion? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, now the case we've been looking for all evening, the last one. Case S11747-1, Alaska Pacific University subdivision. Could we hear from staff, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Prior to beginning, I would like to hand out a color map that I printed off from the website and distributed to the Platting Board members. I found it today.
Wow, that's pretty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The request before you is a request to vacate a portion of an unused trails easement on the north side of Chester Creek. It's within Tract A of Alaska Pacific University. Basically, I'd like to refer to the map. The dark line is the platted center line of the creek. There is, as shown on let me get it. Where the heck am I? As shown on page 12 of the packet, it shows the page 2 of the preliminary plat. It identifies the stream thread. It identifies the 25-foot stream protection setback on both sides of the creek. It also identifies that portion of the trails easement that is the subject of the request for this vacation. It's basically going to be an unused portion of the trail easement. The map handed out shows that the trail is actually being realigned. The current project that is funded for construction, starting at the southeast corner of the property, the trail follows along the just north of 40th Avenue. That's a dedication for 40th Avenue. It then enters the subdivision to the south. That portion of the trail is largely constructed within Athenian Village subdivision to the south. And it continues around student housing. It continues up, whereupon it re-enters the petition site. It is still a portion that is constructed, and then it crosses the creek, and at that point it will use and need that trail's easement. That portion of the trail's easement is not the subject of vacation request. It is only that portion on the north side that was originally identified to be the trail's easement, but the new alignment shows that that easement will not be required for the construction of the trail. Therefore, the department does recommend approval of the request to vacate a portion of that 20-foot trail easement, and also recommends approval of the preliminary plat for 18 months, subject to resolving utility easement, amending an existing plat note to reflect the current language for floodplain area. This is a floodplain. There are some Type A wetlands along the creek corridor, and the wetland boundaries should be shown on the final plat. And traffic has requested a public use easement along the west property boundary so that the signals maintenance personnel can actually have a legal access to maintain equipment. Thank you, Mr. Chair. If there's any questions, I'll be happy.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff?
Yes.
Mr. Krager?
I apologize for not being well prepared for this, but I have the packet in front of me, and I'm looking at page 8 of the packet, and I've got a pretty good map there. And I have this one that you handed out, and I'm trying to figure out where on these maps you want to vacate an easement. I see a lot of faint yellow lines, faint pink lines, and some faint purple lines, and some fainter purple lines.
Through the chair, Mr. Krager, you have to use the map on page 11, but basically the easement is being vacated west of the point where the easement, after it has entered Athenian Village subdivision to the south and then returns to Tract A and crosses the creek. That is the amount of the vacation request.
Okay, I was trying to get to page 11 while you were saying all that.
That's this
Page
okay, now
page 11 shows, in the hatched area, it shows that portion of the creek trail easement that is the subject of the request. And it correlates to that portion of the trail easement that is west of the purple line where it commences going north, and it actually crosses the creek and continues heading east. So it's that portion of the trail easement that is west of that crossing.
Mr. Krager? It's also on this map here.
Okay. I don't have that one with me, but...
Okay.
May I follow up the question?
Certainly.
And why is the vacation of this trail necessary for the approval of the plat?
That portion of the trail, the reason the trail is actually being located is that the plat was done the original underlying plat was done in 1983. There is not, you have to look at the color map that I handed out because the preliminary plat does not show the student housing. But with the creek easement as well as the trail easement, it cannot fit in the area between the center line of the creek and the student housing that was built is built outside of the easements, but that is the problem there. It also is a way of, this is the new alignment that was engineered, and vacation of that trail easement will allow more privacy for the student housing, because it would be right up, people would be walking right up against the student housing. So for those two reasons, basically it's that one reason that the alignment, and it's not going to be used. The developed trail is, and this is part of a much larger trail improvement project. So the easement is not needed, and the request is to vacate it.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions of staff? Will we hear from the petitioner, please? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Story.
I had one more question for staff. So if I understand this right, the section that is to be vacated it doesn't have a trail on it currently and is not being used for a trail.
Through the chair, Mr. Story, that's correct. What you said is correct. Yes.
So the proposed construction of the new trail will provide a new trail in an appropriate easement.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll hear from the petitioner.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Tim Potter with Dow HK. I'm representing the University of Alaska tonight on this request. We do have a representative also of the university in their property and real estate section here tonight as well, if there's any specific questions that go outside of my scope. I'd like to give a little bit more history that wasn't included in the package. About 7 years ago, there was a desire by the community to fill one of the missing links of our trail system, and that was then envisioned to be the Chester Creek Trail connection. That would basically connect Northern Lights at about the bridge over to Russian Jack Springs, which I know Ms. Plunkett is well aware of, down the east side of the UAA APU campus area, basically where there was a trail and dog mushing route during the Iditarod and our full Honorary races, and then down along the south side of University Lake. It would then cross under the grade-separated crossing at Elmore, it used to be Brigade, now Elmore, and then it comes out north of the creek as depicted on the plans. And if I can, let me go to this and see if we can make any sense out of it. And I'll try and be, maybe I can, well, yeah, that's a little better, I guess. Okay, I'll speak into the microphone now, but with Elmore, this is on page 21 of your package. So when the community had a significant series of public hearings on this new Chester Creek Trail connection, it was looked at trying to get from basically Northern Lights all the way over to Providence Drive at about Alumni Drive, and come out at Providence Drive at that location. So basically follow the creek alignment out to Providence Drive. And the real desire of the trail is to do a couple of things. One was to build that, but it was also to be a primary mainline trail that was usable as a commuter-type trail for bicycle traffic to complete one of the sections important through the city. With the UMed district being such an important job generator, with about 8,400 to 9,000 jobs at this time, plus all the students, that it would seem to be important to be a larger quality, higher speed paved trail section that had larger curve radii from a safety standpoint, because people would be traveling faster. So a new alignment was pursued. And after a lot of discussion and a couple of years of public hearings, it was approved in basically this location,
It was to be south of the creek once you cross through the underpass on Elmore. There's an existing bridge. So if you see Elmore over here, this is the underpass or the tube that goes underneath Elmore. You come down and there's an existing paved trail section that comes to here, and there's an existing bridge section over Chester Creek. At that location, it does drop south of the creek and then drops down and continues over to tie into the south side of the creek within the Providence campus. So both UAA and Providence have worked to negotiate a trail alignment that works with their campus development as well as work for the general public. And part of the issue with this trail alignment and the request for vacation is that the alignment that's north of the creek came out of a 1983 plat, and it was a desire to have a trail that would connect through this UAA property. At that time, there weren't any thoughts about the grander scheme of where the trails were going to go, these crosstown trails, how they were going to be utilized, higher speed traffic, heavier volumes of traffic. When the student housing project was developed in this area, this trail then entered a fairly congested area. And as Ms. O'Brien indicated, as you can see on the map that she handed out, there is student housing that is located very close to the trail alignment on the north side of the creek. Part of the essence of this new trail was to be a replacement for that and a more fully functional for broader use. So this drawing that I did tries to show you that the solid green area is an existing trail that will stay in the existing easement from the 1983 action. The area that's cross-hatched up here is the north side of the creek, and that would be vacated. As part of the negotiation with UAA, the city agreed to bring forward a vacation of this, and they are paying for this plotting action. The city is. And the new alignment on the south side of the creek would then be granted by UAA to the city so that they could get the trail constructed. But you have to secure all of the easements and right-of-way before you get fully funded and you can start construction. So that's the essence there. If I can go to the drawing that Ms. O'Brien handed out, and even though it's, I guess, difficult to see, it doesn't necessarily help either, but I'll try and just give you a little bit of a detail. With the housing shown on this map, you can see that the creek alignment, which is right here, that it would put a public trail right next to the student housing. The desired outcome of this is to vacate that interest so it can be controlled as a UAA campus area and signed that way. And the general public is then directed to the south side of the creek on this trail, and that will be the new public alignment for travel through this area. And it gives a bit more protection to the housing area and keeps the public from directly being behind the student housing at this location. So effectively, as Margaret indicated, this is in effect kind of a swapping out of a previous trail easement for a different trail easement that meets the needs of the public based on about a 7-year process to bring this project to construction, which is supposed to begin this summer. So I would call this a housekeeping issue, and believe it is the case, and I apologize that some of the drawings in the packet, especially when you have them at 8.5 by 11, are difficult to follow about what's being really requested to be vacated and why. I thought going back in time and explaining how the new trail was envisioned and why the alignments and the right-of-way for that, the easements needed to be a little bit different to provide a different type of trail for a variety of users that previously weren't perceived or thought about using the existing trail section. So effectively, it's not a reduction in the amount of public trail easement area. It's basically swapping one for another to put it in a better location for long-term interest of the public.
So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and just indicate that reviewing the staff's recommended conditions of approval, we have no objection to any of those four, and would appreciate your support tonight.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the petitioner? I don't believe so. Are there anybody else out in the audience wishing to testify? Okay. The matter rests with the board. Could I have a positive motion, please? Ms. Moses.
In the case of S-11747-1, Alaska Pacific University Subdivision Tract A-1, vacation of an easement for the unused trail segment on the north side of the Chester Creek alignment. Oh, I think I left out, I moved to approve. So if you could add that.
Okay, could I have a second, please? Ms. Sophie, thank you. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I intend to support the motion. It appears to meet all the minimum requirements.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Is there anyone opposed to the motion? Seeing none, motion passes. Ms. Stoltz or Ms. Moses?
In case S-11747-1, move to approve for approval of the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 4 on page 5 of the packet.
I have a second, please. Ms. Stolpe, thank you. Would you speak to your motion?
I intend to support the motion, as again, it seems to meet all the requirements, and I don't see any reason not to.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Any opposed? Motion carries. That concludes our public testimony, public hearings. We don't have any appearance requests. There doesn't seem to be any others. No persons to be heard. Reports. I do have a brief report. Ms. Moses, Mr. Krager, and I met with the transition team of the new mayor last week and briefly explained to them what some of the things we've been going through and what we see in the future, and intending to keep on keeping on, basically. I don't actually see any further need for any action. If you have any questions or comments that you would like to get to the transition team, feel free to do so. And that's all of those comments. Anything else to bring before this board? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Can I have a second? All right. Meeting adjourned. Jody, you didn't make it. It was a lot of fun.
I guess they thought since I work in corporate relocation, I would be interested.
Oh, really?
I mean, I could have gone with it, instead of coming or taken it upon myself.